Can you believe in just a few short years, the television will be celebrating its 100th birthday? I mean, seriously, it's actually crazy. It's almost as old as your mom. In its 100 years, television has had its share of defining eras and moments. Even if you weren't around for these eras or events personally, you've probably seen a handful of them. Like, maybe you've seen the clip of the Apollo 11 landing on the moon, which was televised to over 650 million people. Or maybe you've seen the infamous clip of OJ running from the cops. Whatever your relationship to the television is, the medium is responsible for some really historic moments and some of the greatest shows to ever grace the planet. Although I could have picked 10 decades of television to dissect and unpack, I went with the only decade that offered some of the greatest television of all time. And yo mama. What the hell? In my eyes, the 2000s was a magical time in television that will likely never be repeated again. In this video, I want to break down what shows carried television from January 1st, 2000 to December 31st, 2009. Here's some disclaimers about the video because I don't feel like saying all of them, so feel free to pause to get the idea. Without further ado, let's talk about Family Guy.
Nervous? Like when I had to sell pancakes to the school sack extension?
The year 2000. What a time to be alive. I mean, dude, the PS2 just came out and Swing Away is a launch title. I mean, this game was moving units, all two of them.
What people will do for a little entertainment system.
In terms of television, I'm dead serious when I say this year might be the most influential year of the decade. And if you've seen my video on reality TV, which I'm sure you fake motherfuckers haven't, you know why. Pop quiz. Which one of these shows that debuted in 2000 would shift the direction of the television industry? If you guessed Survivor, congrats, you're correct. If you picked Black Books, disconnect your internet, dude. If you don't know, Survivor is a reality TV show where strangers from across the country are put on an island where they must vote someone out every couple of days, until one person is crowned the sole survivor. While the concept is simple, the show offers insight into human relationship and is genuinely very compelling. It's still going to this day. There's lying, deceit, and Jeff. What more do you want, really?
You know, lots of people like to watch adventure. It doesn't necessarily mean they really should get up off the couch. And I'm now convinced that Colton is the guy who never should have got up off the couch. We brought a quitter back, and we gotta quit again.
The show managed to succeed because at the time, Americans were way more interested in reality as a form of entertainment, given how the media treated the O.J. Simpson trial and the Monica Lewinsky incident. If Survivor tried to come out just a couple years earlier, it might have flopped, to be honest with you. Survivor's influence is very well known at this point, but if you're unaware, the 2000s was booming with reality TV. It was everywhere. Keeping Up with the Kardashians, Big Brother, and American Idol are just a few of the shows to make their debut in the coming years. Greedy producers and networks were trying their best to recreate the magic and popularity of Survivor, especially because of how cheap reality TV is to produce. Aside from Survivor, there was so much else going on in this year. Here's a few shows that got their debut: Malcolm in the Middle, CSI, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and The Gilmore Girls. And I also want to mention, while these shows didn't start in 2000, The Sopranos and SpongeBob, which I'll get into later, were airing their second seasons. In the year 2000, you could start to see some of the seeds of how this decade was going to play out. The decade kicked off with a really strong start, and it was definitely an indicator of where things would be going. 2001 is kind of what you would expect given the previous year in television. Because of Survivor, we got a couple of new reality TV shows, most notably Fear Factor, hosted by Joe Rogan. The show Big Brother also had its second season, which I mentioned because the show completely changed direction after a horrendous first season. It was fucking bad. Reality TV was on the come up, and in the next couple of years, the genre was really going to take off. Enough about reality TV though, let's talk about the show 24.
You want to see some magic?
24 is an American action drama that revolves around the character Jack Bauer, a U.S. counterterrorism federal agent.
George Mason's gonna be here in a couple minutes, and then he's gonna brief me.
You, not us? You can't shut me up, Jack.
It might not sound special, but the show's appeal, especially in the context of this video, is its format. Let me break it down for you. In Jason Middle's book, Television and American Culture, Middle breaks down how time is often manipulated in film or TV to create a unique effect, also known as its narrative duration. An example of time distortion he gives is one that's familiar to most of us, the montage. Montage sequences will often fit days or months into a 3-minute sequence, usually to like a song or something. Another example that's familiar to us is the slow motion shot. Because time is slowed way down, we as the audience can appreciate the nuances of a character's action. Most shows are in real time, meaning there's no alteration to the time in the show. Now, hold on for just 1 second and let me cook for a little bit, trust me. A show like The Office is set in real time, but things happen off screen all the time that audiences must fill in by themselves. Let me give an example. In the episode where Pam invites the office to her art gallery, we observe the characters at their jobs in the scene before we cut to Pam's art show. We, the audience, fill in the blanks that Pam probably went home, got ready, drove to the show, and then got there. But there's no need to show all that, as A, we just assumed that already, and B, there's not enough time in a 20-minute episode to do it in real time. Now here's why 24 is so special. 24 is all completely real time. Each season had 24 episodes, each an hour long. So the idea of the show is that each season in its entirety is an entire 24-hour day. There's no time jumps or anything of that sort like you would find in any other show. The one thing you can say if you want to be a nerd loser about it is that there are commercial breaks, but like, okay, whatever. It isn't technically 24 hours. But if you're the type to complain about the show, just go watch Young Sheldon, you fucking asshole. Stick with Ellen DeGeneres, little bro.
Are you a fucking nerd? A weeaboo? A Discord moderator incel? Wait, let me back up. You're gonna need professional help for that
Hey guys, Ellen DeGenerate, why the fuck do you watch my show? Eminem is my secret twin brother.
Alright, but okay, why does it matter? I mean, who cares that it's set in real time? Good question. For the longest time, and maybe even until this day, TV has been second to film in terms of its ability to be creative with format or style. Before the 21st century, television was extremely limited by producers and networks. That's why when you go back and look at shows from the 70s and 80s, they all feel kinda samey. By the time the 2000s came around, there were more channels, which meant more competition, which meant more shows were trying to stand out. Thus, we got a show like 24. It's influential as it was one of the first shows to be this daring with its format, which inspired other shows to play around with their format and their storytelling. Lastly, I gotta bring this up, the show influenced serialized storytelling and a high-stakes narrative, which, believe it or not, wasn't the norm in television yet. That's really all I have to say about 24, but what else was going on in 2001? I mean, off the top of my head, I know that Adult Swim launched this year, which makes perfect sense. At this time, television was finally getting to be way more experimental with its content, especially because there was now way more channels than ever before. Again, I have to stress, before the 2000s, TV was a kind of one-size-fits-all in terms of content. Shows were designed in such a way where anyone can watch them, and I'm not gonna say enjoy it because those shows were garbage, but let's just say they could tolerate it. In the 2000s, TV was now trying to cater to niches. That way, there's a show for everyone. Last thing on 2001, I of course have to mention the September 11th attacks. I'm gonna be quick with this one. It was George Bush Basically, the attacks led to many changes in the programs and regulations. A lot of shows were either postponed or changed to be more sensitive to the victims' families. It also changed how the news was done. Many networks would adopt the 24 hours news format, blah, 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 blah. All in all, 2001 was a pretty busy year. Let's check out 2002. Just like how 2001 piggybacked off of what was going on in 2000, so did 2002. Reality TV was still ongoing, and this year brought one of its biggest shows ever, American Idol. I'm sure you're all familiar with the show. People from across the US try to impress judges with their singing so they can make it to the end of the show and be crowned the winner.
Thank you very much indeed. Cassandra, that was terrible.
I'm sorry.
No, I mean awful.
American Idol would make use of this gimmick that would prevail throughout the early 2000s, where viewers could vote for their favorite players from their phones. This tactic was primarily used by networks to generate audience engagement, which ultimately led to investment among viewers. The show was popular because Americans were beginning to become fixated with the idea of becoming a star, and reality TV was the perfect opportunity for an average Joe to get their big break. After all, the first season of American Idol was won by Kelly Clarkson.
The winner of American Idol 2002 is Kelly Clarkson.
The show I want to touch on for this year, though, is The Wire. The Wire is a show about law enforcement in the city of Baltimore, Maryland. Each season of the show provides insight and commentary on different real-life issues through the lens of law enforcement. For instance, Season 1 is on the illegal drug trade, and Season 4 is on the education system. What sets The Wire apart from other shows is its attention to detail. The Wire is a show that has been praised for its sense of realism. The writer of the show, David Simon, was a former police reporter who was very in tune with issues happening. His writing was really helpful in making the show feel real. It's insane to me that this show was greenlit, given how unfiltered and blunt it tends to be. Simon gives a fantastic overview of the city of Baltimore. Sometimes the show even uses real people from Baltimore to appear in the show.
Cause Omar can come back tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and I will put a bullet in all y'all behind what happened right now. You heard?
The Wire is representative of shows becoming more ambitious and well written. Today we might take it for granted, but if you can imagine yourself as someone who spent the 90s watching Friends, and suddenly you get The Wire, it must have been like a breath of fresh air. The Wire broke new territory and is definitely the best show of 2000. Well, okay. The best one except for something else. I almost don't even want to say it, but I'm just fucking around. It was Jimmy Neutron. I want to talk about Jimmy Neutron. If you watched my video on 2000's films, which I'm sure you fake motherfuckers haven't, you know that animation was beginning to change in the early 2000s. CG animation was the new thing at the time, and Jimmy Neutron was one of the first shows to use this technology. It was a novelty at the time. Most children's TV shows were still in 2D, so Jimmy Neutron was a nice change of pace.
Is this the scene where Donut Boy sings the Donut Boy theme song? Who's the super cool cop? It always gets the bad guy. Donut Boy, that's me. Yeah. He brings a delicious assortment of sweet delights. Donut Boy, got a creamy filling.
I really don't want to talk about this year, man. I really don't want to fucking talk about this year. One of the most evil and disturbed individuals of all time got their talk show started. Yeah. Eminem. Oh shit, sorry. I meant Ellen DeGeneres. It brings me legitimate pain to have to speak about this show, but unfortunately, there are a few things I have to touch on. As we've been discussing, television was starting to offer way more options for its viewers. And with that, many genres of television, like the talk show genre, were beginning to deviate from what their contemporaries were doing. Ellen in particular was very different from her competition. For starters, her show was a daytime talk show, so her show was lighter and took a more whimsical approach to the genre. Secondly, Ellen was able to be one of the first talk shows to really incorporate social media challenges and viral videos into her show. Might not sound like a big deal, but because Ellen was always interested in what people found funny or interesting, this definitely helped her show. I know the meme Damn Daniel was unfunny upon impact, but it was popular for the time, which prompted Ellen to grab the boys for the show.
I mean, at first, the first time he came up to me, I was like, what's this guy doing? I didn't expect him walking up to me, but I mean, after that, we had some Snapchats like back from people and saying that they actually liked it, yo.
Lastly, the existence and the success of the Ellen Show is important in the context of representation on television. Ellen was one of the first people to be openly gay on television, which is actually great. In order to break boundaries, we need producers and executives who are willing to go against the norm and platform people who usually aren't in the spotlight. It reminds me of how black artists were not shown on MTV until Michael Jackson came along and opened the door. Now, I get it. The actual Ellen Show is cringe and awkward. I agree. I don't like it either. But I felt I should at least touch on it a little bit since it was indicative of the television industry in the early 2000s. One of the other shows I want to talk about is Arrested Development. This show is about a once wealthy dysfunctional family navigating their interpersonal relationships and financial troubles. The show struggled in ratings, but critics loved it. The show pushed television comedy with complex serialized plotting and fast editing. It wasn't a hit by any means, but it managed to get a cult following, especially when it hit DVD. Throughout this video, I've been talking non-stop about how all producers really want out of their show is profit. While a lot of shows certainly have many talented people working on them, at the end of the day, money is the single most important thing to these networks. What's interesting about Arrested Development is that it seemed to defy these rules. While the show was airing, it didn't receive the greatest ratings or viewership, but Fox committed to it for 3 seasons. It's one of the few times a network has been willing to let go of monetary gain to simply make a good product. While this is certainly the exception and not the rule, I think it's worth pointing out, as perhaps it meant that networks might be willing to gamble more if they really believed in their material.
He's got us, Dad. Come on out. Talking to you, you idiot. Cover.
I ain't your daddy! How's it going, brother?
One show I gotta talk about to top off 2003 is Teen Titans. What a show. This shit is brilliant. That's really all I have to say about it. I'm serious. I can't add anything else. It's brilliant. This year, man. This has gotta be the greatest year in television history. I got 3 words for you guys. Friends is over. After 8 very long and very unfunny years, the evil was no more. Okay, while I'm mostly joking, the end of Friends can almost be seen as the changing of the guard for mainstream television. Shows like Friends dominated television for pretty much the entirety of the 80s and 90s because people back then had no taste. But by the 2000s, the status quo is being challenged by reality TV and serialized drama. This doesn't mean sitcoms were over, but instead, they just took a backseat for the next couple of years. You could say that the sitcom found itself a little lost. I fucking suck at this.
So, I was just looking inside the fuselage. It's pretty grim in there. You think we should do something about the, BODYS?
Lost is a show about a group of people stranded on an island after their plane crashes. They land on a mysterious island and attempt to find a way home. As the show progresses, we learn more about these characters, we see elements of supernatural activity, and some mysteries are introduced. Lost works because of its well-written characters and its ensemble cast. The show has characters that are all extremely different from each other, but they all feel realistic and convincing. That's probably the best thing I've read about the show, is its attention to detail in character writing. Not an easy thing to do when you have a cast this big. I think this show is significant for similar reasons to that of The Wire or 24, But I want to add that I think it's an early example of writers developing a detailed and unique world of their own. The Wire and 24 took place in our real world, but Lost plays around with what's real and what's not. Not a crazy thing by today's standards, but again, around this time, it was refreshing. You think Family Ties or Roseanne was doing any shit like this? You think the King of fucking Queens did anything besides feature the fucking mall cop?
Hello, fuck you. Kevin James is Zookeeper. Go see it, asshole.
Yeah, I didn't think so either, bro. Go back to Watch Mojo. Your favorite video is top 20 Medea clips, motherfucker.
Freak out, yo!
2005 was straight up magical. Magical, man. This year introduced us to The Office, How I Met Your Mother, Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Colbert Report, and Grey's Anatomy. Every show here managed to become a hit. These shows couldn't be any more different from each other, but they all managed to succeed because of how the television industry was starting to operate. I'm going to focus on these 3 shows the most due to time constraints, but just know these 2 were significant as well. Let's start with How I Met Your Mother. Many people say it's like the spiritual successor to Friends, because the show started just as Friends ended. And to be honest, I can see it. This show's fucking ass, bro.
Look, Stella, I am not here to win you back. I am here because I need to know that you made the biggest mistake of your life.
I know.
How I Met Your Mother is a sitcom about a New Yorker named Ted Mosby, stumbling his way through adulthood with his love life as the focal point. He and his friends juggle relationships, jobs, and everything in between. This show is worth talking about because it showed the lasting power of the sitcom. New genres were taking over, yes, but the sitcom could still succeed in the changing landscape. Speaking of a changing landscape, I want to pivot to another sitcom, The Office. Like How I Met Your Mother, The Office showcased the viability of the sitcom. But what I find more interesting about The Office is its use of genre blending and realism. For those of you who haven't seen the show, The Office is a mockumentary centered around the staff of the Dunder Mifflin Paper Company. The show perfectly captures the awkwardness and mundaneness of the average American office. You have the weird coworker, the strict one, the motherly one, and the normal one. Unlike the typical sitcom, The Office frames itself as a documentary, which allowed for the writers to really lean into the realism of the show. Which leads me to something I wanted to talk about: realism in television. In film school, we consider the question, why do people watch films or TV? Why? Do we do it to escape the troubles of reality? I mean, that would make sense. In the world of Lord of the Rings, for instance, there's adventure and drama and Smeagol. In Spider-Man, there's cool powers, awesome fights, and Smeagol. In essence, these shows offer escapism, an escape from the boringness and tediousness of everyday life.
But wait!
So then why would a show like The Office be appealing? A show that wants to completely focus on the boringness and tediousness of everyday life.
My job is to speak to clients on the phone about quantities and type of copy or paper.
For some people, an escape is not what they're looking for, but rather, they're looking for something they can relate to. While Spider-Man is awesome, none of us can relate to him, not really. We can, however, relate to having a crush on a coworker or having to sit through stupid meetings. In this way, The Office is effective because it can connect with millions of viewers who are experiencing the same thing. It is for these reasons that I believe The Office was able to perform so well. When you tie that in with the fact that reality TV was in its prime, the success of The Office seems really obvious. People were into reality in the mid-2000s.
People say I am the best boss. They go, God, we've never worked in a place like this before. You're hilarious. And you get the best out of us.
I know I've been focusing on TV shows targeted towards more adults or general audiences.
But wait!
Just as TV was becoming more advanced in storytelling and world building, this carried over to children's TV. I briefly mentioned SpongeBob earlier, and with that show, I wanted to point out that it's often been praised for its unique ability to be accessible to both children and adults. A large part of SpongeBob's success is because anyone can watch it and enjoy it for different reasons. It's funny, it's creative, and it always has a positive message.
Open 24 hours a day. What a stupid idea! Who wants a Krabby Patty at 3 in the morning?
Oh boy, 3 a.m.
Children's TV was gradually becoming more mature, which led to a show like Avatar being able to exist. So, I'll finally break down the show. Avatar: The Last Airbender is a 3-season show about a boy named Aang trying to restore balance to the world by putting an end to the Fire Nation. In the show, people can bend the elements, fire, water, earth, and air, but only Aang is capable of bending all 4. What is really unique about Avatar is its serialization and maturity. A show like Fairly OddParents is episodic, meaning each episode is a standalone thing. You don't need to watch episodes 1 through 60 to understand episode 61. You can watch them in whatever the hell order you please. In Avatar, you do need to watch episodes 1 through 60 to understand episode 61. While this isn't groundbreaking for a normal show, for a children's show, this is really impressive and ambitious. Children's TV is episodic because kids are generally ill-equipped to handle an ongoing story that requires a decent level of attention. Additionally, Avatar has some pretty mature themes in it, which is something that has to be praised about it as well. The show touches on war, genocide, love, toxic families, and more. The show writers managed to make a very deep and rich show while managing to cater to a younger audience. A very difficult thing to do.
Now that's firebending! Dang, you'll hurt yourself!
And one last thing now that I'm thinking about it, Avatar is obviously fantasy, it's certainly more on the escapism side of the fence, but if there's one thing that I can praise about it, is that it still feels real. Characters are completely believable and 3-dimensional. Even minor characters like Jet are given a lot of work. It's awesome. Let's talk about 2006. This year fucking sucked, especially compared to 2005. I'm going to 2007. I'm gonna be upfront, I'm combining 2007 and 2008 into one segment as I feel these 2 years were more of the same as the previous years. Before getting into the meat and potatoes, let's quickly go over The Sopranos, which was brought up earlier, but before we do, a quick word from our sponsor, Young Sheldon. Did you know that for the low price of $22.99 a month, you can watch Young Sheldon on Netflix? That's right, bitch. Young Sheldon on Netflix. Haven't seen The Big Bang Theory? Too fucking bad. We're incompetent as a company and we do not have The Big Bang Theory. However, if you want to watch The Big Bang Theory, we happen to be airing it at our Sit the fuck down with 400 other nerdy and greasy Big Bangarang fans and enjoy the entirety of the show in one sitting. Big Sheldon, $1 million. Buy now, fuck you.
Kevin James is a zookeeper, fuck you. He's about to get married, fuck you.
I'm a squirrel, I can't talk, fuck you.
Pirates of the Caribbean, 40-fucking-8, fuck you.
Yeah, so thank you to our sponsor, Young Sheldon. The Sopranos. Alright, so this show started in 1999, but the majority of its run was in the 2000s, so it qualifies for this exercise. I think Big Bang Theory enjoyers definitely qualify for some exercise if you catch my drift. You know what, that was fucked up, I apologize for that one. The Sopranos is a show that revolves around Tony Soprano, an Italian-American mobster. Tony struggles to balance his family life with his role as the leader of a criminal organization. The series had 6 seasons spanning from 1999 to 2007, and it's widely regarded as one of the greatest shows of all time, currently ranked the 9th best TV show of all time on IMDb. On top of that, the show is often credited with starting the second golden age of television. That's right, the 2000s are often called the second golden age of television, and The Sopranos is a large reason for it. I mention The Sopranos now because these two shows started just as The Sopranos came to an end. I'm of course talking about Mad Men and Breaking Bad. I see these two shows as the peak of what television was coming to in this decade. The writing was getting better, the visuals were getting better, the production was getting better, the variety was getting better, everything was just getting better. It's one of those few times in history where the stars aligned to give us some fantastic shows. I'll touch on Mad Men first. It's set in New York during the 1960s and 70s and revolves around the character Don Draper. Draper is the creative director of the fictional Sterling Cooper advertising agency. Throughout Mad Men, the characters deal with conflicts involving corporate politics and societal expectations. It's able to capture the spirit and attitudes of old America and is often cited as one of the greatest shows of all time.
So, we got a lot of people not saying anything that sells cigarettes.
Not exactly. This is the greatest advertising opportunity since the invention of cereal.
In college, we studied the show in my television class. Something that my professor pointed out, which I found really interesting, is that the show decides to show ceilings in shots. I know what you're thinking. Who cares? I thought the same thing, I'll give you that. But the reason this was pointed out was because my professor noted how shows actively try to avoid showing ceilings, because it is generally unflattering and doesn't have a purpose. Try to, next time you're watching television, see how many shows show a ceiling. Not that many. So why does the camera show ceilings in Mad Men? Well, funnily enough, it's to add a sense of realism. Mad Men is a show that is actively trying to remind the audience of when and where it is taking place. And one of the ways it does that is by showing the ceiling. It's really subtle, and if you think I'm full of shit, I don't even blame you, but it's a nice little touch. All in all, it's a well-crafted show that is only outshined by the next show on this list, Breaking Bad.
Why do you do it? Money? Mainly? There you go.
Nah, come on. Man, some straight like you, giant stick up his ass, all of a sudden at age, 60, he's just gonna break bad?
Breaking Bad is a show that I really don't even have to explain why it's here. It's pretty much gospel that this is the greatest show of all time. For the one person out there who hasn't seen it, the show is about Walter White, a science teacher turned meth cook after learning he has cancer. He partners with his old student Jesse Pinkman and embarks on a journey that will completely transform his character. This show has been dissected and explained dozens and dozens of times by this point. Countless shitty video essays have been made explaining the genius of this show's writing, acting, and cinematography. In the context of this video, all I can say that, for me, Breaking Bad is the climax of television. Television was beginning to become more fleshed out and layered this decade, and Breaking Bad just took it to the highest level possible. A show like Breaking Bad is beautiful because it is proof of how excellent television can be given the right team of writers, actors, and producers. It came at a time when anything seemed possible for television. The only way forward was up. Little did people know that Breaking Bad was the peak, and unfortunately, the rest was downhill from here. So here we are, the end of the decade. We've covered a lot of shows by now, more than I initially thought we would. I gotta say, I'm happy with our choices. I mean, what a beautiful list of shows. So how did the decade end? On what note are we going out on? I mean, it's gotta be an explosive year and all after how fire the 2000s were, right? Alright, what do we got?
Ass! Fuck!
Glee? Why the fuck does it have to be Glee? What happened, bro? We had such a good decade. Just like when I realized I was going to have to write about Ellen, I'm now debating scrapping this entire video. This show is almost as bad as Young Sheldon. I imagine you have some questions. I know I fucking did. As much as I don't care for this show, it's undeniably relevant to our discussion here. Let me fill you in on the show before we dissect its significance. Glee is a show about a bunch of different people who find a common passion in singing. The club is run by this weird teacher who happens to have even weirder students. What I think the show Glee wants to be is a show about people from different backgrounds being unified by a common passion. On paper, that's perfectly fine, but unfortunately, the writers and showrunners wrote characters that relied on stereotypes. The show was well received for its time, but has since been reevaluated by the public, especially recently. I think Glee is important to talk about for several reasons. Many people would say Glee is not a good show, and that's kind of why I feel it deserves to be on this list. Hear me out. As we have learned in this video, TV was doing nothing but improving this decade. This all came to a climax in 2007 and 2008 with Mad Men and Breaking Bad, two shows that are considered some of the greatest of all time. Aside from Game of Thrones in 2011, there has not been a single show, in my opinion, that has even come close to the level of quality of these two shows. Thus, we can almost see Glee as a piece of foreshadowing for the next decade. Shows like Riverdale, and I would even say Euphoria, seem to pull from the ideas presented in Glee. Yes, Euphoria. I don't care, the show sucks, get over it. The 2000s were a special time in television because it felt like writers put genuine care into their characters. They wanted to represent people from different backgrounds in an honest way, without relying on cliches or stereotypes. Because of that, we got classic shows. Earlier we discussed how Lost was able to have such an interesting and well thought out group of characters. But I feel somewhere in the late 2000s and in the early 2010s, either studios or writers, or both, just got lazy. It feels like they simply began being diverse for the sake of being diverse. They forgot why shows like Lost or The Wire were compelling in the first place. All in all, I think Glee kind of shows where television was heading next, officially marking the end of the second golden age in television. Conclusions. Television debatably peaked in the 2000s. There was so many new shows coming out, many of which were of quality. I think that when any industry or art form is undergoing a lot of change, good art is always a byproduct. When no one is really sure what is going on in an industry, artists have to rely on fundamentals, and people are more willing to take risks. I like to think of early YouTube. How often do you hear people say that early YouTube was like the wild, wild west? This is because no one really knew what they were doing. YouTube was brand new and there was no preconception of what to do. People were simply creating from the heart, and it led to some of the most iconic and beloved videos on the platform. There was no obnoxious, "What's up guys?" There was no perfectly calculated thumbnails. It was just straight up content. In the same way, I feel television in the 2000s was able to strive because people were focused on making quality shows. There was so much more room for creativity and originality than ever before in television. It is for these reasons I personally think the 2000s is the best decade in television history. There's genuinely too many classic shows, and even the bad ones are still better than whatever the fuck this show is. I'd take The Swan over the live action Avatar remake any day of the week. For a medium that has been around for almost 100 years, there is no doubt in my mind that this was the decade television was at its finest. It's honestly hard for me to believe that this decade will ever be topped, but you never know. What I do know is that these shows, all of them, define the 2000s.
Windmill, windmill for the land, and turn forever hand in hand, and taking all in on your stride. It is sinking, falling down. Love forever, love is free. Let's turn forever, you and me. Windmill, windmill for the land, is everybody in?